Make every night a wonderful journey, no matter where you are. Good night, sweet dreams. The first story, Freelancer. 5 years ago, there had been an event so horrific to the mind of my community, but also destructive to the world itself. My name is Neil McCoy, and this is the story of how I had encountered a sadistic person who would only work with the right clients. It was Portland, Oregon, 2006. I was at a bus stop waiting for my sister's daughter. As I was waiting, I saw a man standing next to me who appeared to be in his 20s. I simply thought he was just waiting to get the bus, so I waited. And waited, and waited. Why wasn't my niece coming? I called her on my cell and impatiently tapped my foot for a voice, but she didn't answer. I looked at my phone. How could she not have answered? Then the man next to me asked, "She's not there." Nah. I stared at him. How did he know about my niece? Did he do anything to her? But to my relief he said, "Girlfriends are bitches, man." I let out a breath of relief. Of course, he couldn't have done anything to her. That's just silly. I waited for a couple more minutes before I got tired enough to sit on the bench a couple crosswalks over. The man followed. I decided to strike a conversation with him just in case he was a nice guy. "So, what's your name?" He smiled and answered, "Turner. Alex Turner." I immediately thought he was some top business guy to introduce himself like that. "Hello, Alex. My name is Neil," said Alex. I paused and trembled. This is definitely wrong. How the hell did he know my name? I know what you are thinking. And yes, you have every reason to be suspicious of me. Neil McCoy. This was getting too scary, but luckily, the bus arrived. I ran to the stop to pick up my niece. McCoy, he did not follow, and he had disappeared. The next couple of days, I started to think I saw that man was sent to kill me. But why? One day, at a park, I sat down on one of the benches to relax, and when I turned to see my neighbor, it was him. "Hello, Neil. What a surprise to see you." "Don't you mean to see me again?" "Again?" He paused. "Of course. I met you before at that stop with your niece. Speaking of which, she is very adorable." I stood up and grabbed him by the collar. "Listen, you. I don't know who you are, but if you don't get the fuck out of this city by tomorrow, I am calling the cops." He pushed me away and brushed off his shirt. He looked at me and said, "Very well. Goodbye, Mr. McCoy." And you know who I met the next day? You guessed it. It was the same park and the same bench this time. He looked quite different, in fact. He looked the same as when I first met him, and different from the day after. Maybe he puts on makeup or something. Sick drag queen. I though stared and said, "Why, we meet again, Neil." I looked at him coldly and chuckled. "You don't get it, do you? You son of a bitch." He looked confused and asked, "What are you talking about?" "Don't get smart with me, fucker. I warned you and now you pay." I took out my phone and then, bang. Screaming was my first reaction to this pain. I had gotten shot in my shoulder, both dislocating and shattering it. He walked up to me and kicked me to my side, so that I would be laying on my back. He looked at me and said, "You wouldn't dare call the cops on Alex Turner, would you?" With the last of my strength, I punched him in the mouth and sent him flying on his back. He got up instantly and laughed a satanic laugh. "Who do you work for?" I asked. "I'm my own boss, Neil." He replied, "I own my own business and company." "What's the company?" "Turner Corporation." He stopped laughing. "How did you know?" I looked at him and said, "Are you serious?" Before the next gunshot. I closed my eyes, but felt no other pain than the one in my shoulder. I opened them and saw what happened. Alex had gotten shot. I turned my head around and saw the most contradictory image of my life. It was Alex Turner living behind me, shooting Alex Turner, the dead son of a bitch. In front of me, Alex, the living one, slowly made his way to me. I didn't get it. He's alive? He has a twin? What the fuck is going on? I asked him who he was and what he is. I screamed it out even when I knew no one would listen. He finally got to me and took a bow. He put his lips to my ear and said, "Freelancer." I was too confused to take it in. I fainted then. I fainted. Now when I came to, he was gone. I awoke a second time in the hospital. What did he mean? Freelancer? I searched it in the dictionary and saw a shortened meaning. Freelancer, a self-hired individual, a person who works for himself or is self-owned. Did that mean he hired himself to kill me? No, that's retarded. This wasn't a Stephen King novel. It was real life. But one day, when I finally came home and my niece returned home, I saw on the news what had happened. Here's a little bit of what they said. At about 4:50 on July 12th at Park, the man known as Neil McCoy was shot and murdered along with the brother of Alex Turner who... I stopped. Brother of Alex Turner, that mean was still out there. I watched my windows and doors every day for about 6 months, but nothing happened. I knew now what Freelancer meant. He wasn't trying to kill me. He was trying to kill his brother. But why did the brother pretend he was Alex? Unless they were wrong and his brother was coming after me. He was trying to kill me, or maybe for some other purpose. He had a company, a corporation. Maybe he wants me to work for him. That'll never happen, but then again, I liked the feel of being in a bloody situation. The pain of the bullet in me. It felt exhilarating. I think I'm gonna give it some thought. Or maybe I should be a freelancer. The second story, my new best friend. Do you ever have the feeling someone or something is watching you everywhere you go? Well, that was the feeling I got when I met my new best friend. I was about 12 at the time and in school. I was one of those kids known as the loser, or nerd, and stuff like that. Nobody ever talked to me because they thought I was weird. So, when I met my new friend, I was amazed. School had just started a few weeks ago, so kids were still buzzing about it. Classes went by. I ate lunch, and school was over. I grabbed my book bag and walked outside the school doors, walked down the steps, and started on the sidewalk. Now to get to my house, you had to pass by a forest. I had been told to never go by the forest, because children disappear there when they walked by there. I always thought there was a bunch of crap, so I went by the forest anyway. Passing the forest, I saw a little girl sitting on a bench just outside the forest. I paid no attention to her until she said my name, Ali. I froze completely. How did she know my name? Why was she talking to me? All of these questions were frolicking through my little head. I turned around slowly. The girl was about my age. had dark black hair, and had on a white dress. Her hair looked wet, I guess you could say, and she was very pale. She looked kind of like a ghost. Why, yes, I replied. I was kind of freaked out. One, because someone was actually talking to me, to this girl, looked very creepy. And 3, I had never seen this girl before in my life. I am new in this town, and I know nothing about it. Would you like to show me around into my house? She said. She paused a lot while saying that, like she couldn't breathe or something. Now, I was very protective of myself when I was little, so I wasn't sure if I should have went with this girl or not. I shouldn't have, because it would cause a big mistake. But I knew that if she tried to harm me, I would defend myself, so I thought, fuck it, I'll go. So I said all right, and the girl smiled. I asked what her name was, and she said Taylor Madison. Taylor's house was in the other direction of my house. As we were walking, Taylor told me her parents would be visiting her aunt's house for a few weeks, so she was there alone in her house. I thought it was weird to leave your kid alone in the house, but okay. We arrived at her house about 10-15 minutes later. Her house was so beautiful. It must have been recently built that year, because I had never seen it before. We walked inside and automatically went to her room. We didn't play rules or any of that crap, we just talked. I started to think we would become very good friends. But I shouldn't have met her that day. I shouldn't have went by that forest that day. After we got done talking, I said bye and ran home. My parents would be worried sick. And guess what they were? Where were you, Ali? We were worried sick, my mom yelled. My parents were very overprotective. That must be why I was so protective of myself. I met a new friend today, Mom. She was so nice, and I went to her house. It was so fun. I'm sorry it won't happen again, I said. My mom squinted at me, thinking my mom knows when I lie, and she knew I wasn't lying. Did you meet her at the forest, Ali? My mom said angrily. I sighed. Yes. I met her at the forest. I'm sorry, I said with sorrow. My mom and dad gasped. You know, to Evie, or go to the forest. Don't go there again, okay? You promise me? My parents scolded. Yes, I promise. But what is so bad about the forest? I asked. I mean, I never really knew why the forest was so bad. I know kids disappeared, but maybe they just disappeared. It doesn't mean the forest is bad, right? My parents looked at each other. If this happens again, we will tell you why. Just go to bed, my father said. I nodded and slept like a baby that night. Each day I went to my friend's house. I didn't go to the forest because my parents said not to. We talked and laughed and smiled and all that stuff. One day my friend told me to meet her at the forest. I told her I wasn't allowed, but she demanded me. I said yes. We went to the forest and sat on the bench. I asked her a question. Taylor, what is so bad about this forest? My parents tell me not to come here. But why? Do you know? She nodded and smirks. I'm sure your parents will tell you when you get home. I need to get home. Goodbye, Taylor said as she slowly walks down the road. I had to hurry back or my mom would know I went to the forest. She's psychic or something. I got home and my parents were waiting for me on the couch. They glared at me for some time, until I confessed. Okay, I am so sorry, Mom and Dad. My friend Taylor told me to meet her there. I'm sorry, I said, scared for my life. My parents would kill me. My parents looked shocked for some reason. What's wrong? I questioned. Who did you say your friend was? Taylor Madison. My mom screamed. I flinched and nodded. My mom grabbed my arms and set me down on the couch. What she was about to tell me would scar me for life. My mother basically told me that a long time ago, my friend, Taylor, went down to the forest when she was 12. It started to rain while Taylor was sitting on the bench. A car went by on the road while Taylor was walking back home. She got run over by a car and was pronounced dead. The myth about her was that she would meet kids outside of the forest, be really nice and become their best friend, and later kill them by the forest. That was why so many kids disappeared around there. My mom said she knew Taylor before she died. This freaked the shit out of me. It made sense though, since Taylor was wet and looked pale. She was a ghost. My parents were scared, so we moved later on. The funny thing is Taylor still follows me to this day. She is attached to me. She was my new best friend, but I see her in the mirror. She watches me, waits for me. She waits for me to be the next victim on her list. The third story. Hard breathing. I slowly slip into consciousness. There is nothing. It's all dark. I then gain my other senses, feeling my back against an uncomfortable hard surface. I smell fresh sawdust, as one would smell in a Home Depot. Then comes the taste of sawdust and grain, making my mouth crave any sort of liquid to quench my thirst. Now the heat sets in. I realize it's only just at a bearable level. I'm sweating and my general musk is making the air humid. I still cannot see. I start to breathe heavy and put my hands in front of me. I feel thick, grainy, with no more than 6 inches in front of my face. I now realize I'm in a coffin. I'm in my deathbed. I am going to die. After what felt like an hour pounding all sides of the coffin, I relinquish my strength to the air. I lay back, knowing death won't come quickly. My fate now would either be starvation, dehydration, heat stroke, or more likely, suffocation, my worst fear, gasping for air and no relief in sight. I have often been afraid of swimming or any other situation where I could be deprived of oxygen. As I'm thinking of this torture, I feel my lips, they are dry, like the desert sands now. That flashes in my mind is a dry and desolate desert, with nothing but animal skulls and carcasses shriveling up in the scorching sun. After what felt like another hour, I start to fall asleep. I hear a beat off in the distance. I convince myself it's just a vein in the side of my head throbbing. The longer it persists, the less I believe it's an internal occurrence. Then it becomes so loud that I cannot fool myself into believing it's my mental or a physical problem. I slowly turn my head and see cracks become clear with a dim orange light shining through. Not enough to light the coffin, but enough to line the edge of my tomb. Now along with the drums I hear chanting, in some language that I could not comprehend. It was almost a mix of Arabic and German. I start to shake violently out of fear. All of a sudden, the chanting stops, but the drums only slow to a mild beat. My heart finally slows to the pace. I do not yell, because I believe I am in here for a reason, and these people know the reason. Then I hear it. I know the sound. It's the crackle of fire. I hear shuffling around the outside of the box, then another familiar stench. Gasoline. Now the sound of splashing, shuffling, and crackling give me the all too obvious sign of what is going to happen. I feel the gasoline dripping on my legs. Suddenly, everything goes silent. All I can hear is my breath, and the crackle of the fire In a sudden burst, the fire engulfs the part of the box where my legs are. I scream in agony and cannot shed the fire off. I bang on the box till my hands bleed. I scratch and yell, but get no answer finally. The box falls apart and I fall to the ground burning. I roll to get the flames off and finally they extinguish. I catch my breath and see people in cloaks around me. I am too shaken to say a word. One man takes his hood off. I cannot believe my eyes. It's my own father. He walks to me and gets on one knee, cusses me on the head. I feel a sharp pain in my chest. He stands up as I look down. I see a burning piece of wood from the box sticking out of my chest. I fall lifeless, motionless. One tear falling down my cheek as I exhale my last breath.